I'd like to welcome you to the youth program message for Contacts for Jesus for New Ebenezer Cumberland Presbyterian Church. This is our week 4, lesson 4 message for the focus or Contacts for Jesus for our youth program this week for the week of Wednesday, February the 24th. We'll soon have our first March message out this week as well. We're running a little bit behind because of the weather that we've had here lately. The focus of the message this week is on a decision. In this week's look at our various lessons, we start out once again with the focus on, as I said, a decision. In the first, our youngest group, the My Sunday Pictures lesson that we have, Jesus is telling a story of two men that decided to build houses. One builds his house on a rock and the other builds his house on the sand. Now, as this takes place, the men think they've made some good decisions. But a decision that's not a good decision can lead to some bad results. When the rain and the wind hit these two houses, and it's in the same storm, one on the rock that's built keeps standing, and it does well. The one who made a decision to build their house on the sand finds that their house does not stand up to the storm, and it quickly falls to the ground. A decision about where to build a house makes a difference. It determines whether that house will fall or if it will stand. A decision about whether we follow God or not is much the same as the decision about building a house. Will our faith, will our decision to follow God stand up if we truly follow God and do His will? The answer is yes. But if we don't choose to follow God, if we have a decision to go against God, to follow the ways of the world, our house will fall, just like the house that was built on the sand. We will have many, many problems, and we will turn away from God. Belief in God helps us to be strong in our house of faith, in our trust of God. A decision not to follow God, though, will lead our house of faith to fall away from God, and we will be faced with a life of trouble unless we will change our ways and turn back to God. In the middle group of children's lesson that we have this week, in our middle group of youth, we have the Picks lesson. In the Picks lesson, while we've been following the prophet Elijah, now, as we saw last week, we pick up following and begin to follow the prophet Elisha. Elisha begins his story as he begins as the prophet for Israel at this time. The story begins with the king of Aram trying to kill the king of Israel. He goes out of his way to find many ways to capture the king of Israel and tries to destroy him in any way he can. But time and time again, the prophet Elijah makes sure that the king of Israel stays safe. He keeps him from being captured and killed. God is always showing the prophet Elijah how to keep the king of Israel safe. The king of Aram gets angry and makes a decision, a bad one at that, to try to kill Elisha instead. He just moves his anger from the king of Israel to Elijah the prophet. Another bad decision doesn't help if we keep on making bad decisions. It's like the old saying, two wrongs don't make a right. The king of Aram's army is sent to surround Elisha and all his followers. All but Elijah and that group of followers think that they will be killed and that the army of the king of Aram will win. But that's not going to be the case. You see, Elisha knows what God's army can do. And he knows that God has sent his army to surround the king of Aram's army and protect Elisha and all the people that are with him. And sure enough, he tells his followers, and they too see what's happening. The followers of the king of Aram, his soldiers, his army, they are blinded and they are taken to the center of the kingdom of Israel. As prisoners? No, they're taken as guests and friends. They think they're going to be killed, but instead, when their sight returns after they've been blinded and led to the very heart of Israel, they suddenly find that no, they're not going to be killed. They're going to be treated as friends. They're going to be fed a meal, and they're going to be sent back home. They are amazed that even as enemies, they're treated in a nice way. A decision was made to be good to people, even those who are enemies. A decision just might turn an enemy into a friend with God's help. That's what we can learn from this story. In the lesson from the rock, which is our older group's lesson for this week, we hear about a new kid in town. The kid's name is TJ. Now, TJ is an unusual kind of kid. He doesn't look necessarily like the rest of the kids. And he, being new, doesn't have any friends. And he's not real quick to make friends because the other kids just don't seem to want him around. They tell him to go sit somewhere else, but they do it in a sneaky way. They make a decision not to be friendly to him. He kind of knows what's going on, but he goes and sits by himself anyway. The thing is, the writer of our story knows it's just not quite right to treat TJ this way. They get reminded of that when another kid, another new kid, in fact, a boy named Chase, decides to be doing something. He makes a decision to be more friendly to TJ. Chase goes and sits with TJ and makes a friend of TJ. But TJ is a little on the sick side. TJ has asthma. It's a breathing problem, and it causes him to end up in the hospital for a few days. Well, the writer of our story, after talking with Chase, realizes that TJ is just another kid in a new school that needs some friends. And so our writer of our story goes and visits TJ, finds out TJ's not such a bad guy after all, and starts to be friendly to TJ. When Chase is gone from school a day or so, this writer of our story goes and sits with TJ. The writer of our story has friends that don't understand, but they suddenly realize, hey, if our writer can do it, maybe they can too. And they begin to understand, and they make a decision to welcome TJ into their group as well. That's a good thing. So what we can find out is this, that we can make decisions that will move us closer to people that we might not even know. The decision we see in our story was first made by Chase, one of the new kids in town. A decision was then made by our writer to share that they could learn something new. And then the whole group makes a decision to invite TJ to be a part of their group. We can make decisions that will be just as strong and as good as they can. We can help other people to see the good in others as well. We can be friendly, we can be caring, we can be helpful. But will we? That's the question. You see, each of these stories had a decision to be made. Can you think of a time when you've had a decision where you needed to help somebody? Maybe it was a decision that kept them from getting hurt, similar or like the decision that Elisha made when he tried to help keep the king of Israel from getting captured and killed. Maybe you had a decision that you made that helped somebody to be stronger or to do better, like helping them to make a better grade by helping them to study. Maybe you helped them in a sport by helping them practice. Maybe you helped an older person with some yard work or carrying their groceries or doing some things for them around the house. Maybe it was something else with someone else around church or out in the community. Maybe you made a decision that helped somebody in a way that you didn't even think about before. Maybe even you made a decision that changed somebody else's attitude, like you helped two people become friends. It helps somebody maybe get to know Jesus. That's a very important thing that you can do in helping someone make a decision to have Jesus Christ in their life. There's always a decision that we will have to make that's waiting on us around every corner. Some decisions are easy to make. Some decisions are really hard to make. Asking who we know about the decisions to make is a good thing to do. If they know and have had experience in what we're facing, they can be very helpful. But one of the best things that we can do when we make a decision is to go to God in prayer and ask God for help. God will send us the people to help show us the way. He will tell us things in our prayers that will help us to understand what we need to do. Listen to God and listen to others who really, really have your best interest at heart. If you do, you'll find that you will be moving in the right direction. Always make a decision to follow Jesus Christ and follow God. Hope you have a good week. Stay safe. Enjoy the good weather as things begin to warm up. And God bless you. And we'll see you this next week in our Contacts for Jesus message. God bless.